Good morning and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this morning with myself, Baz, on this Saturday morning. So we did have the first pre-season game of last night, and of the first pre-season game of the season last night, and it was a typical first pre-season game. Brendan Rodgers used the half to put out two different teams. The second half was basically the B team. Brendan Rodgers spoke about it afterwards and said that he was happy with it, which is fine. I think you can all take, it is one of those games. But the big talking point at the moment is obviously the fact that Celtic are in the process of selling Nico Kuhn. And Brendan Rodgers spoke about that. He says he'll be on his way. He says it's virtually agreed again with Como. It looks like at this point he'll be on his way. We just have to wait for confirmation, said Brendan Rodgers. He said, I think it's a very clear model here at Celtic. He's come in, and in the 18 months he's been absolutely fantastic for us. Now this is where a lot of Celtic fans will think back to last season. Listen to what Brendan Rodgers then said, because a lot of people think that he downed tools. You remember there was interest with Nico Kuhn. There was interest with Nico Kuhn back in January last season. And Celtic knew that, and Nico Kuhn knew it. And Brendan Rodgers went on to say, he says, look, he joined, he's played the 18 months, he's done absolutely fantastic. He was aware of people looking at him and the interest, and that's other teams have joined that interest over the summer. So young players come in, he's done a brilliant job for the club, develop, improve, and we sell on. A short period, 18 months, it's fantastic business. He's now getting the move that he wants. Interesting. He's now getting the move that he wants. Of course, we want to succeed, but a lot of players come in with the notion that they can develop and improve. They're at a brilliant club. They get the opportunity, and they can earn 3 and 4 times salary. Sometimes that is always a challenge for the likes of ourselves. And that is basically it. He went on to then say, Brendan Rodgers, he's done brilliant for us in 18 months. If he does end up going and signing for Como, then it's great business all round. He then went on to say, I think it really helps us, to be honest. I said, the earlier the better, because the player wants to go, and you don't want him hanging about. Really, you want to just get the deal done. You have a valuation, you think what's right, and you move on. And then you look to get replacements in. So Celtic will be diving into the transfer market again to get another winger, a replacement for Nico Kuhn. Rodgers also confirmed that Polish defender Mark Norowski is heading for Germany, second-tier side Hanover, for a season-long loan. The 24-year-old has been hindered by injury in these past 18 months at Celtic after moving from Legia Warsaw. Brendan Rodgers says that he was never really consistent and he was never able to stay fit. The last time he started for us was at Ayr, and he got injured and he's been out for a number of weeks. So he says when it comes to it, it's important that he goes out and plays. So Rodgers welcomed in the 5th signing of the summer when a 23-year-old defender from the J-League, Anamura, joined on a 4-year deal, and the manager explained the latest recruit will be gently bedded into life at Celtic. He will not be thrust into the first team. Now that's an interesting one. That's a project player. That's a project player that he doesn't want to force him into the first team. He's going to bed him in gently. So, asked if he would be ready for the first team, Brendan Rodgers said no, he will not be part of the first team. He's part of an investment of the club. We'll assess and we'll see where the young player is at and whether he stays with the squad or whether he goes out on loan. Well, there you go. We're buying assets now. We're just buying assets to loan them back out. Brendan Rodgers isn't convinced that he's a player that, he's not getting right into the first team. So there's the plan. That's it. Celtic made all the song and dance about this player coming in, and he's not going to be a first team. That's Brendan Rodgers' own words. Asked if he would go straight into the first team, Rodgers said no, he won't. He's part of the investment of the club. We'll assess and see where he's at as a young player, and then it's whether he stays with the squad or whether he goes out on loan. So that was your signing that was signed last night on the dotted line for Celtic. Anamura, a lot of people were getting a bit worried, thinking, is that really the standard of player that we're going to go for the first team? Well, gladly it's not. Celtic have had us all hanging and thinking that we're going down the route of managed decline, but we're not, seemingly. So Brendan Rodgers, 18-month signings, hardly planning ahead, building a team unlike Martin. I could see the negativity coming in the comments already. We shouldn't get the grumpy Greek back. He wanted away from Celtic. You don't bring players that want away. Anyway, and more Celtic news this morning. Obviously, we got in Anamura. Where is it? Dyson Maeda. It's been spoken about that Dyson Maeda would be a bigger loss to Celtic. And it's also said after last night that Celtic have placed a £25 million plus target. I'm going to say it's a target because when Celtic come out with prices, it means that we're not adverse to selling them. When Celtic do come out and state prices in private, obviously, they're not going to come out and say it on camera. But the fact that it's been spoken about that Celtic want 25 million plus for Dyson Maeda, hopefully he doesn't leave. Hopefully the big deal of the summer. We all know that Nico Kuhn. I mean, how do you feel about Nico Kuhn? I mean, he is a player. I think I found it refreshing that Brendan Rodgers said, look, we knew the situation with Kuhn. There was teams looking at Kuhn last season. He knew about the interest. He knew that interest just got even more intense over the summer. So I suppose it's right. I suppose it is good that we get it done and dusted earlier on in the window and we move on. Couldn't no more. But everyone was right. He downed tools. I mean, there was a lot of people on this channel that said, look, Kuhn's just down tools since January. I think Kuhn was actually hoping to get sold in January. And I go back to it. I go back to what I said before. Kuhn wouldn't have been half effective without Alistair Johnson, says Cammy. Yeah, this is true, Cammy. It's true. But I always go back to, remember, he went through a bit of a goal drought, and then when he scored, he didn't celebrate. He turned to the Celtic fans and he done this. Fucking talk all you want, you know what I mean? Fucking Scottish bastards. Done this on the pitch. You knew something wasn't right then. You knew that the player's mindset, he was gone. He was gone. And then when you look at him, can't see us selling Kuhn and Maeda, but it wouldn't surprise me, says Kieran. Yeah, I think hopefully we can get to the end of the transfer window. But the reality is we need to get Dyson Maeda on a longer contract. Anyway, it's a departure that, as far as Brendan Rodgers says, look, it's a good piece of business. Now, Chris Sutton, on the other hand, Chris Sutton is no shrinking Charlotte, Violet, fucking, he'll just shoot from the hips, doesn't he? And letting Nico Kuhn leave Celtic is a major risk, and I'll hold off until they prove me wrong, says Chris Sutton. City didn't think the Hoops would get such a big fee. You've got to remember as well, Chris Sutton said a few weeks ago there's no chance of getting 15 million, 20 million for Nico Kuhn. Well, Chris, they have, and he's been proved wrong with that. Nico Kuhn is out the door for a fortune, goes on to say, and it looks like an outstanding piece of financial business again by Celtic, said Chris Sutton. Hands up, I didn't think that Celtic would get such an impressive fee for the winger after he downed tools. I wasn't convinced that any club would be willing to fork out as much, but Como clearly believe that he's worth that amount of money. Of course he is. Of course he is. In the modern market, Chris, Nico Kuhn's worth that all day long. But regardless of the circumstances, said Chris Sutton, I'll reserve my full judgment on this matter until after the Champions League qualifier is over. Chris Sutton likes to just go, I'm waiting. here waiting, and if to prove me wrong, Celtic. Prove me wrong. For whatever the reason, Chris Sutton goes on to say that the German is leaving at the precise moment represents a risk, and now it's down to Celtic to disprove the notion. If Kuhn's exit doesn't damage the route back to the league phase in the elite tournament, then I'll start dishing out plaudits. On figures alone, Celtic have done terrifically well, over a profit of around about 14 million on a guy who was just 18 months and performed consistently at a high level for half a season. Maybe that's a bit harsh, but Kuhn deserved time to settle in during the first 6 months. He didn't really do that. With a strong pre-season under his belt, he had a fantastic half-season and European season last year, scoring against Bayern Munich in Germany. I thought he would have went back to Germany, but obviously Como have says Fabregas has talked with him. He fell off the cliff a couple of times. He was hooked at half-time. Right, we'll remember that, Chris. He was crap the second half of the season. I think the money we've got for him is fantastic. Do you know, there's many times that we were saying it's what's happened to Kuhn. Do you know what has happened to him? So Brendan Rodgers also said last season, remember, that it's a changing of the guard. We lost Kyogo Furuhashi because Kyogo Furuhashi told Celtic months before he wanted out. Nico Kuhn has been aware of interest in him from January this year. He's wanted out. Do you know, let's just hope that we can keep a hold, because if we don't, we're going to have to bring in some absolutely fines. And I am glad this morning. Nothing against Anamura, but I was starting to think the worst. I was really starting to think the worst, that we're going into this season by... I hope he paid his dentist bill before he left. That's just wrong. No, but it's not enough, says Michelle. Good morning to you. I think it's a decent amount of money. He's not, if he had performed, look at it this way, if he had performed the full season, like he'd performed the first half of the season, you can then say, yeah, you're in Matt O'Reilly territory. You're in Jota territory, 20 million plus. But he didn't have that consistency. Hence the reason that Chris Sutton said in his article a few weeks ago, he said that Celtic are never getting 20 million more, 20 million for Kuhn. No way. He's not worth it. But we got just under that in euros. Tony Watt scored against Barcelona. How much did we get for him? 1 goal doesn't make you... Come on. You cannot compare Tony Watt to Nico Kuhn. Nico Kuhn scored something like 20 goals and 20 assists or something last season. Yeah, I think that we will. I think that we will be stronger coming out the window. And I mean, after reading Brendan Rodgers' comment last night, especially about Anamura, because I was starting to get a little bit nervous, the fact that you're bringing in a defender that doesn't speak any English, and you're wanting him to be the mainstay of the team. Well, Brendan Rodgers says no. Don't know, and I'm glad that he's came out and said that. I mean, we could go over it again, but anyway. Hearts boss, fucking who cares about him? Talking about a player that was alleged ready and willing to come to Celtic, but Celtic never put an offer in. Penrith went from Hearts for a fee in the region of 2 million. A 26-year-old, he comes under the same. Penrith for me comes under the same as Greg Taylor. They wouldn't want to play backup to Kieran Tierney. That's my thinking behind it, and that's why I think that Brendan Rodgers ultimately this season is going to bring in a younger player from the academy as backup to Kieran Tierney. Anyway, the game last night, we spoke about it after the game last night, and I thought that the team lineup wasn't too much of a shock. Brendan Rodgers says that the guys that are just coming back from their summer holidays will not be travelling to Cork, But they will be travelling to Portugal. The time that the team heads to Portugal, the full squad will be assembled and they will all be taking part in training. That's the Brendan Rodgers time. The first two pre-season games are always just about, the trip to Ireland is all about just giving back to the fans over there and selling Irish shirts. We all know what that is. But it's also a chance that Brendan Rodgers gets to look at as many of the younger players as possible the first two games of pre-season. And everything's going to plan by the looks of it. Everything's going to plan. He said that the intensity. Luke McCowan also. Luke McCowan speaking after the game last night. Luke McCowan said that this being his first pre-season at Celtic, he's looking forward to it. He's loving the double sessions. With a grin, he said. He's obviously, Luke McCowan also said, and now this is a bit of interest for you as well, because a lot of people say that Luke McCowan should get more game time. Luke McCowan said on Celtic TV last night that there's about 10 parts to his game that he feels that he needs to improve on this season. So, and that's a big statement from a player. There's not many times that a player will come out pre-season and say, yeah, there's 10 points that I want to improve my game on. And especially a 27-year-old player, and especially one at Celtic. And I love the honesty. I love the honesty that come from Luke McCowan in that interview. Do you know? And then he went on to say, with being a elder part of the squad last night, did a lot of the younger players ask him questions, and he said that he went around and he spoke to every single one of the younger players, obviously yesterday and before and during the game last night, before the game and after the game, giving them little pointers. But he spoke to them about their journey at Celtic, and he was giving them tips, So I think that when you look, Baz, do you think they will wait after the Champions League? No, we won't. No, Craig. Craig says, do you think that we'll wait until after the Champions League qualifier to spend substantial cash? No. I think that now that we've got that first piece of business done with a player that wanted to leave, I think Celtic will go out. And it was interesting that he said that Anamura is not the first team squad. So we're now looking for a winger, another winger, and we're still looking for a centre-back. But then again, it just depends on the movement. There'll be a lot of movement going in and out. I did say last season, people, Brendan Rodgers said, as it stands, we need to bring in 4 players. But we've brought in 5 players so far. I still think it could be a window where we could bring in anything up to 8 or 9 players in this window. And there could be just as many leaving also. A lot of players say that they've never seen Celtic play in Ireland, so they're going to the game. I think the Cork game sold out, didn't it? Quite early on, not too sure. Anyway, left-sided centre-back, centre-mid, 2 wingers, striker, that's the areas that we're looking at. A left centre-back. I take it that we're just going to... I still think that we're going to use one of the younger guys as backup to Kieran Tierney. Anyway, other than that, that's the Celtic news this morning. Brendan welcomes quick-fire transfer of Nico Kuhn. He said that he didn't want the player hanging around. He doesn't want a player that's pissed off. And bringing in another Japanese player that is not going to get any game time. And he might get put on loan. It'll be interesting. What will be really interesting is to see if Celtic do put Anamura out on loan. Is where will they send him to? I wonder if they'd send him to Birmingham. Just saying. Could they send him to Birmingham? That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Anyway, there's additional signings due to come in over the course of the window. The window does run for another... we're only in July. We've still got the whole of July and the whole of August to go. So let's just hope that we can keep a hold of the best players. On that note, Saturday morning, go and enjoy yourself. No football today. Saturday football. Can't wait till it's back. Anyway, he'll be loaned to Como. I doubt it. Spend around 5 million each on a handful of players, get them wet spaghetti and see what sticks. Same every season. Don't say that. Anyway, have a fantastic day, Celtic fans, wherever you are. And let's just say goodbye to Nico Kuhn. Give him his little bit of see you later, you Kuhn.